Smoking meat is a culinary art that many of us have come to love. From the tender brisket falling apart at the touch of a fork to the rich, smoky flavor of a perfect barbecue, smoked meats have become a staple of various cuisines around the world. But how did this technique start? What was the original purpose of smoking meats? Let's take a flavorful journey through time to uncover where this practice began, how it evolved, and why it remains so beloved today. Welcome to the History of Simple Things, where we delve into the fascinating history behind the little things that shape our world. Smoking meat began long before it became a craft for flavor enhancement or gourmet preparation. The earliest known instances of smoking meat can be traced back thousands of years to ancient civilizations that needed to preserve food. Back then, there were no refrigerators or freezers to keep meat fresh for long periods. Spoilage was a constant concern, and without preservation methods, entire food supplies could go to waste. Humans discovered early on that drying meat in the sun could extend its shelf life, but it wasn't always the most effective method in all climates. Smoking provided an alternative way to preserve meat, especially in more humid environments where drying was less effective. By hanging meat over a slow-burning fire, early humans could dehydrate the meat while exposing it to the antimicrobial properties of smoke. This process not only kept meat edible for longer, but also protected it from pests like insects and rodents. The practice of smoking meat wasn't just about practicality, it had a profound impact on survival. With the ability to preserve meat for longer, communities could stockpile food for times when hunting wasn't possible, like during harsh winters or periods of drought. In many ways, smoking meat was a key factor in the survival and expansion of human civilizations. Many ancient cultures developed their own methods of smoking meat, often combining it with other preservation techniques like salting or fermenting. In these times, smoking meat wasn't just about sustenance, it became a ritual, part of a community's cultural practices, and a way to pass down knowledge across generations. In the Americas, for instance, indigenous peoples, including the Native Americans, used smoking as a way to preserve meat from animals like bison, deer, and fish. Smokehouses were a common feature of early Native American societies, where meat would be hung in a shelter and slow-cooked over a smoldering fire for hours or even days. The result was a form of jerky that could last for months, a vital food source for nomadic tribes who often traveled long distances between hunts. Across the ocean in ancient Europe, the process of smoking meats was also evolving. The Vikings, known for their seafaring expeditions, used smoking to preserve fish, particularly salmon. They built smokehouses near their homes, and the process of smoking became an essential part of their diet and trade. Salted and smoked fish could be stored for long voyages, ensuring they had a reliable food source while exploring distant lands. In Asia, the history of smoking meats took a slightly different path. China, in particular, has a long tradition of preserving meats through both curing and smoking. One famous example is lapcheong, a type of Chinese sausage that has been smoked and cured. These sausages were not only a staple in Chinese cuisine, but also a method for storing food during the colder months when fresh meat was harder to come by. Similarly, in Japan, the practice of smoking fish like mackerel and bonito dates back centuries. These smoked fish were often turned into flakes or powders and used to add umami-rich flavors to soups and broths. The process of smoking wasn't just about preservation, but about enhancing the depth of flavors in traditional dishes. By the Middle Ages, smoking meat had spread throughout Europe and became a common practice in households, particularly in northern regions where the colder climate made food preservation even more critical. Smokehouses were often built next to homes, and families would use them to smoke meats like pork, lamb, and fish. Over time, different woods were used to create unique flavors, leading to a diversification in the types of smoked meats available. It was during this period that the flavors associated with smoked meats started to gain more attention. People began to notice that different types of wood, such as oak, hickory, or applewood, imparted distinct flavors to the meat. What had started as a method of preservation was slowly evolving into a culinary technique, with people experimenting with different woods and smoking times to achieve the perfect taste. As European settlers began to explore and colonize different parts of the world, they brought their smoking techniques with them. When they arrived in the Americas, they encountered indigenous peoples who were already using similar methods to preserve meat. The combination of Old World and New World practices led to a unique fusion of smoking techniques, especially in regions like the southern United States, where barbecue culture was born. Barbecue, as we know it today, is deeply rooted in the traditions of smoking meat. In the southern U.S., smoking became a way to slow-cook tougher cuts of meat, transforming them into tender, flavorful dishes. Pitmasters began to experiment with different rubs, marinades, and woods, creating the distinct barbecue styles that vary from state to state. Whether it's Texas brisket, Carolina pulled pork, or Memphis ribs, the heart of barbecue lies in the ancient art of smoking. Today, smoking meats is no longer a necessity for preserving food, thanks to modern refrigeration. However, the practice has evolved into a gourmet art form. From backyard barbecuers to high-end chefs, people around the world continue to embrace the rich, smoky flavors that come from this ancient technique. In the modern era, smoking has taken on a new significance. It's no longer just about survival. It's about flavor, tradition, and the enjoyment of sharing a meal. Whether you're using a high-tech smoker or keeping it simple with a campfire, the act of smoking meat brings people together. It's a communal experience, one that has deep roots in history but continues to thrive in kitchens and smokehouses around the globe. The tradition of smoking meats has journeyed through millennia, starting as a survival technique and evolving into a beloved culinary practice. From ancient smokehouses to modern-day smokers, this age-old method connects us to the past while continuing to satisfy our taste buds in the present. So, the next time you enjoy a smoked piece of meat, remember that you're tasting a tradition that has stood the test of time. And that's the story behind smoking meats. Thanks for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.